We've got a guest coming on pretty soon, which we're going to wait for him, Lance Christensen, who's going to talk to us about a project he's working on. And I know it's something, near and dear to your heart and mind, which is education. And, it's this idea of being able to fix California education. And it's Education Savings Account Act of 2022. And so I know we should have him in the next 5 minutes, but
Right.
I think it should be a pretty good discussion. It's something, like I said, on this crime
So he
stuff.
wants to they want to fix public education in the state of California.
Well, yes, they do. And the thing is,
Being able to fly around the world backwards and turning back time was too little of a challenge for them. God bless them.
yeah, no, I know. So you know what? He just came on board. Let me get him on right
All
now.
right.
And
There he is.
Lance, there you are. We see you there. We've got Mike Valenti up here.
Hey, Lance.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Living the dream.
All right.
I'm loving this. Well, Lance,
How about let me ask you the first question. So what did you pay for a gallon of gas this week?
So we just drove to Vegas, and the
Ooh.
last place we left was 465.
Oh,
That
wow.
was down in Bakersfield.
Wow. Which is where they're pumping the gas out of, by the
Right,
way.
exactly.
So, makes perfect sense.
No, in Vegas down the street, it's 327 a gallon.
Yep. I was on the phone with someone this morning that was complaining about paying $3.19, and I said, I paid I think it was $4.37 or $4.47 at the Arco station paying cash, and it was the most expensive I've ever paid for gas for the luxury of being here. But
Yeah, the cheapest we pay is at Costco, and I think it was $4.29 in Sacramento when we left.
Well, there you go. So you decided not to deal with the gas, turning back the gas prices, but dealing with the education system in the state of California. I'll turn it back over to Hector, but thanks for being on, and we appreciate it and appreciate what you're trying to do. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you having me here.
yeah. So Lance, you kind of introduce you to the audience. Lance and I have worked together for, God, it's a better part of 15 years or so. And Lance is, it's been one of those true individuals just in the capital, around Sacramento, kind of trying to always make a change, make a difference into a different types of policy. Really working hard on homelessness projects, working very, very hard on wildfire projects, and we're really excited about this latest project he's working on right now, which is entitled "Fix California Education Savings Account Act of 2022." And Lance, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and tell us about the project you're working on.
Yeah, so Hector, you and I have known each other a long time, and I appreciate you guys having me on today. I have been in and around California public policy since about 2002, when I went to Pepperdine School of Public Policy down in LA. And I thought, back then, public policy is just basic stuff. How do we make sure education works? How do we make sure transportation works? And then I got up to the Capitol, and I worked for Tom McClintock for a short period of time. And I realized, oh, it doesn't work this way. Policy and politics creates a huge, huge mess. And so for years, I did all sorts of things. Of course, working for Tom McClintock, it's taxes and infrastructure, pension plans, all that kind of stuff. And then I eventually, through just a change in jobs and other things, I worked for the Governor Schwarzenegger, for a short period of time, doing corrections issues, public safety, and then education within the youth corrections part of our state's corrections system. And I eventually left for a short period of time and worked for Reason Foundation, a libertarian think tank out of LA. I did a pension reform project that was nationwide. California didn't want to do any pension reform, and so we went to other places that did. In the meantime, Jerry Brown did a small amount of that, and I came back to work for John Moorlach, who was then elected as a state senator in Orange County. I was his chief of staff for 6 years, and between all of the environmental stuff you and I used to do with Hector, and AB 32 and wildfires, mental illness, homelessness, I decided that California just needs people that are serious about actual public policy. And unfortunately, John Moorlach was not reelected to the state Senate last year. I lost my job. but fortunately joined another group called Californians or the California Policy Center, which is based out of Orange County. And they're a serious group that deals a lot with the government largesse of the state and trying to figure out how to reduce the barriers to prosperity for most people. And two of the issues they deal with the most are, one, public sector unions and school choice. And so back in March and April of this year, we engaged with some other groups to create a ballot initiative to go on the November ballot for next year. And again, that's not something that just happens overnight. It took hundreds and hundreds of hours of negotiations, of conversations. And it was actually built upon a piece of legislation that we did last year called SB 1344, when John Morlock trying to get an education savings account in state code at that point in time. So I'm here now working on the initiative, and we can, talk more about that.
Yeah, Lance. So, I mean, let's just start off right off the bat. I mean, what is the Education Savings Account and Accounts Act of 2022, and why would California parents want this?
So in California, we spend this next year, we will spend $124 billion, the state of California will, on education. And when you have about 6.6 million kids that are within the K through 12 education age range, about 6 million of those kids go to public schools. And so in the state of California, we have a process called Proposition 98. That's how we fund education. It's approximately 40% of the general fund budget, but then there's all sorts of other stuff thrown into it. And each one of those kids in the system is allocated a certain amount of that as an average. And so in the state of California, the average cost to educate a kid out of the general fund budget, or this Proposition 98 money, is just over $13,000 this next year. And so what we decided to do is take that $13,000, and if you're a kid that lives in California that's K through 12, and you're not satisfied with your public school or the neighborhood school that you go to, or you can't get into a public charter school, which is quite the case for a lot of kids these days, you can take that money and opt into an education savings account. And we'll develop a trust fund that this money will go into for you, that you can use for tuition or other education expenses at an accredited private school of your choice. And so that can mean a whole bunch of things, and we can talk about the nuances here, but essentially it's an opt-in program. This is not mandatory. This is not backpack funding where you divide all the money up and people get to choose which schools they want to go to, public or private. And this also isn't a voucher system where we just send the money to the school. This money would be controlled by parents, and every year they could use it as they deem the best. If they want to go to a more expensive school, they can spend more tuition, or maybe they want to roll that money over, whatever's not used from year to year, and maybe save it for a more expensive high school education or more tutoring. Maybe they have some child sitting needs or transportation issues, maybe other extracurricular activities that they want to do. And we add in one more component to this program too. We allow for $60,000, if not used by the time they graduate high school, to be used for a college savings account or a trade school after they graduate.
I like that. I like that, especially the trade school portion or the savings account. Now, and I'll ask my last question here, and then Mike, you can kind of jump in. But my understanding is that currently there's another version out there right now, Californians for School Choice. How did this happen? Can you explain to us the difference? Because I think for some folks it may be a little confusing to see kind of two of them out there right now, or in the discussion zone right now.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate to have two, honestly. So let's talk about what happened back in March when I was the executive vice president of the California Policy Center. We had engaged Californians for School Choice at the time to work as a partner to take that bill I talked about, SB 1344 from John Morlock in 2018, to make it into an initiative for the ballot. We went through a long process, and there were other people involved, including Fix California, State Senator John Morlock at the time, or the former state senator, helped us out. And there were some other groups that you'd recognize. And as we negotiated this thing, at the very end, California Policy Center is a 501c3, so they couldn't move forward on the initiative because of their status. And so what they decided to do is we had an agreement and gave the reins over to Californians for School Choice and said, hey, you're going to run the campaign. We just ask you to abide by these 4 basic principles. And without going to all the nitty gritty details, we had 4 principles that they were supposed to abide by. When they went and submitted it, they changed those 4. All 4 of those issues, they went a different direction. And because of that, Rick Grinnell, who runs Fix California and who had been a part of the negotiations, he called us up and we talked at the California Policy Center and decided to be consistent with the coalition's initial agreement. And we added in one more component. We put in a phased in means testing portion, because what we found is that in a state like California, there's only so much capacity. So you've got to do something that you can prudently build up this school choice initiative. So we did it in means testing. Those that earn less than $100,000 for the first 2 years get full access. That's about 60% of all families in California. The next 2 years, we doubled that to $200,000, which seems like a lot of money, and in fact covers about 90% of the people or the households in California. And then in year 5, everybody has access. So in other words, let's take care of those that need it first and make sure the capacity is there for them, and as opposed to just throwing everybody into the program. We tried to negotiate a few times with Californians for School Choice. They decided they did not want to have a joint initiative, and so we called their bluff and we submitted our own initiative. I actually took a leave of absence with the California Policy Center, so I'm actually not with them currently, but I'm working with Rick Grinnell and Fix California to make this happen.
Great. A couple of questions, Lance. Let's start at the my former boss Duff used to say the 50,000 foot level. One of the things that you're describing in this process, which is a definitely a unique approach as opposed to, what's been tried before on school choice. It would seem to require, just listening to you describe it, that parents would have to be very, very involved. It's not a program for the parent that looks at school as a place they send their kid to get them out of the house for the day and are not engaged in their education. Now, nationally, we saw education rise to be a huge issue in the state of Virginia last month, to the point where it was, I think, a driving issue. You see the post-election polls, it was a driving issue because there were parents that were upset with the Democrat nominee saying that if he had his way, parents would have no say in any of their kids' education. Do you feel, as you look at this, that there's the opportunity or the interest of parents to get more involved in their kids' education to the point of almost looking at it from an investment standpoint? Okay, I can get this money. How do I work it, and all of that kind of stuff? Do you see that with parents?
I do, and I look at this at multiple tracks, right? One is, this is an opt-in program, and so parents have to sit down and think, did this last year and a half or 2 years of school actually benefit my child? And for most parents, they'll look at what happened in the district public schools and say, it did not. It was a failure. And what do? They already had to be invested in their kids' education, because if they had a job, they had to arrange for childcare or make sure that the Wi-Fi worked, or their computers were up, or the kids could log in or do homework. They were watching a lot of the lessons given by teachers and thinking, oh my goodness, is this what we're paying for with our education system? So I think already that
a sudden window into the classroom.
Correct. And up until now, you could go in if you were able. Again, I have a wife, I'm married, 5 kids, and my wife has a part-time job, but it facilitated her the ability to go in and to be a part of the classroom, right? A lot of parents don't have that ability to do it. It's a dual income household, or maybe a single mother, right? Working 40, 50, 60 hours a week at 2 or 3 jobs. How do they do that? And so the dual track I see here is, one, parents already know that the public school system, or actually more technically, the government controlled school system has been largely very troubled over the last year. And in some places, it's just been catastrophically deficient. Places like LAUSD with 650,000 students, or Sac City Unified. Just complete failures in those 2 places. But putting all that aside, a parent already knows that they've got to do something more if they want their kids to be successful. And I believe most parents really want what's best for their kids. So that's one track. If they want to take their kid and move them to another school that can actually take care of their needs and actually educate them, I think they'll do that. And I think will alleviate some of the problems they already have with their current government school. That's one. Two, there may be a lot of parents, and we had this experience with one of our schools where it actually was a really good school. We really loved it. And my kids succeeded there. They did a great job. The principal was amazing. 99% of the teachers were awesome. We had one problematic teacher in the 11 years our kids went to the elementary school. There's no reason to leave that school. It worked for us, right? So I think this will also imbue a little bit of competition into the system and require public schools or those government schools for which our kids will go to based upon their zip codes to actually step up and deliver a better education than they have been.
Okay, let me ask you a follow-up question. You used the phrase government-controlled school system. I would respectfully disagree. I would call it a union-controlled school system, and that means not only control over the classroom, the students, the parents, but also over the teachers themselves in many cases. How do you fight a behemoth like that in this state, which is really more powerful than either of the political parties in this state?
You and I are in heated agreement about that distinction. And so for most of the public, it's hard to say we have a teacher union problem because they can't make the distinction between the teachers on the one hand and the union that basically controls everything, right? So I would agree with you that it is a massive union problem. Again, I was the executive vice president at California Policy Center, and one of our key programs was to actually help teachers leave their union because we understood that good teachers need to be free to innovate, to do their own thing, and to really educate kids, not based upon the union control. I do think, though, at this point in time, there isn't much of a distinction or a difference at the state level between the union and the government-run schools. I mean, they're basically part and parcel. Mm-hmm. Our superintendent of public instruction has done zero to separate those things. He's kowtowed towards the union. The California Teachers Association, I mean, if you're a teacher, and how many hundreds, thousands of teachers are in the state that are public school teachers, it's about $100 a month ish, give or take, of union dues that goes into the pot. You multiply that out, that's hundreds of millions of dollars every year that goes into campaign and lobbying and all sorts of stuff that is just terrible for our kids. So how do we fight that behemoth? Well, we let parents know how bad it is. And I think that's what happened in Virginia. The last person that came in to campaign for Terry McAuliffe was Randy Weingarten, the president of the American Federation for Teachers, probably the last person on earth I'd want within 100 miles of my campaign. Mm-hmm. But yet they were married at the hip, right? If the government and the teachers union basically came together, and that's what we see in California. And so I'm hoping that as more people understand that distinction, that we can fight back. But I'm not Pollyannish about this. When we go forward to do this, this is going to cost us several $1 million just to, one, get it on the ballot. So that's before the unions come in and try to besmirch and smear me, which Hector and I are no strangers to that. We've done this hand in hand for many years.
I besmirch Hector every week when we do these podcasts.
Hey, so. And who doesn't? Who among us doesn't, right? So I know that this is going to be difficult, but I also know, too, that parents, when they're united, especially mama bears, when you get them upset, they really fight back. And frankly, 3 of our proponents out of the 4 are all mothers from different lifestyles and backgrounds. One's a Democrat, an Afghani woman who teaches at Cal State Long Beach. There's another one who's an immigrant from El Salvador and started the parent union down in Orange County. And there's another one who's Chinese and has a couple kids and is fighting back against the CRT and racism stuff that's popped back up. Mm-hmm. So all these things for which the teachers union has like imbued in our kids, they're not teaching our kids how to add and subtract and think critically or write. They're teaching them how to, kind of divide and hate other people. And it's terrible.
Well, and I think you bring up a great point. And Mike, I think this is back to your question is, I think there's a lot of involvement now from parents on the critical race theory that Lance brought up the example of this whole woke math, whether mathematics is racist or not. You've got this issue that, obviously the campaign that happened in Virginia, which made a lot of national news. And so even now with all the questions is, okay, am I required to wear a mask? Am my kids not required to wear a mask? Are they required to wear a mask even when they're outdoors and playing in the playground or not? And so you've got all these different rules that are coming up for parents. And, I've got two right now that are in the school system. And so as a parent, I've seen a lot greater involvement by other parents right now over the last 2 years than I have seen before. And I think this may be the right time to really, you've got the attention of the parents, and now coming up with a measure that really goes after the issue of education. Because, Mike and I talked about this about a month and a half ago, where you got education, K through 12 just got $38.5 billion more this year than they did 10 years ago. And yet you talk to teachers and they still have to come out of money out of their pocket just to try to pay for some basic supplies. And it's like, where's that money going? And at the same time, is that money that we've invested in education actually putting out the product that we want? Why is California still ranked 48th or 47th in math and English when we should be ranked, with all that amount of money, we should be in the top 5.
Well, you raised actually like 8 different problems, right? Where's the money going? Pension funds for CalSTRS has been wildly mismanaged since 2014. There was this massive CalSTRS reform, and again, without boring the audience to death, it basically said, okay, we're going to act like it doesn't exist now for the next few years, and then we're going to make teachers and schools pay more into the system. And when that happened, then the teachers got mad and were like, no, we're going to do this. So they bargained for more salaries, which increased everything else. You add into the healthcare costs and other things. We're now, quote unquote, have a $31 billion surplus. There's no surplus. That money's been spent years ago. We have $1 trillion pension liability throughout the whole state. $31 billion is not a spit in the bucket. And what our retiree healthcare costs, again, I could go on that end. But let's go back to what's actually happening in the classrooms. I was made aware of right before it happened, the Project Veritas revelation, that you have this AP US history or government teacher up here in Sacramento that basically went out and was teaching his kids how to be revolutionaries. Well, it turns out he's not the only one, right? So it's a lot of this indoctrination that's happening at all levels of our education system in the K through 12 ranges, right? A lot of parents are concerned, well, I'm going to send my kid off to the university and worried about them being brainwashed. Sorry, it already started in kindergarten, right? And so if you're not taking control of this right now, your kid is now being told, again, that if their skin color or pigmentation is different than the kid next to them, that they should feel guilty or bad about it. And I don't see where that helps anybody. Most kids, 5 kids, they don't care what you look like. They want to be your friend. And they have friends of all colors, all stripes, all religions, all ethnicities, all languages, and they just want to learn how to do things. And so when we spend so much time on the issues of division, it's kind of like we're going down a Jim Crow 2.0 process right now. How can parents control that in these public or government-run schools, union-run schools, that won't allow them to have anything? So if they now have a safety valve, and again, this provides resources to parents who couldn't otherwise go and take their kid out of the school, right? So this is taxpayer dollars. They're paying into the system. And right now in the state of California, only 25% of the voters are parents with kids in the K through 12 system. So we have to appeal to those outside that 25% too, right? It's not just going to be parents that say, yes, we want this. It's grandparents who say, I want more for my grandkids. I want them to have opportunities. It's for neighbors who think, I don't want these kids roaming the streets doing nothing because they're not getting what they need to out of their government schools. I don't want our government schools to keep, putting out criminals and ne'er-do-wells. If you're a teacher, you're not allowed to punish your kids anymore in the public school system. There's no discipline. And we're watching what's happening with the breakdown of society. We could talk about Prop 47 and what's happening in, the Bay Area with all these shoplifting things. Well, where do you think those kids came from? They're doing that stuff. I don't think any of those kids went to private schools or charter schools. They're probably products of a government-run school that didn't instill with them any sort of civic mind or ideas of patriotism or ownership or economics, didn't teach them to run their basic lives. And so they don't have a lot of hope. They were socially promoted through the system all the way out into a pipeline of prisons. And how does that work for anybody? Is that working? I don't think it is.
No, not at all. Lance, let me shift gears a little bit because we're running out of time. Hector's the policy guy. I'm the political hack in the back. You do have a constituency that is motivated, probably more than they've ever been before. With CRT, they're more aware. As you mentioned, with remote learning, they've now seen what goes on in the classroom. You've got a first big step ahead of you to get this qualified and then go forward. How do you tap into, and if people want to have more information or get involved, more importantly, in what you all are trying to achieve here, how do they do that?
I appreciate you asking. So we've been building up an infrastructure, which was kind of hard because originally we wanted somebody else to run the campaign. Now that I've taken it over, I've stepped aside from my policy job. I'm running the political side. And we're engaging a lot of very smart people, getting endorsements of all stripes. Gloria Romero, who was the former majority leader in the California State Senate out of LA, has endorsed the measure. Leo Terrell, a whole bunch of groups across the state are now figuring out what's going on. They're joining our ranks. We have to gather 1.5 million signatures by April 26th. That's huge. That's a lot. And so we have a website, educationsavingsaccounts.com, or then go to fixcalifornia.com/education. Any one of those two websites will take you to the same place. We're adding stuff we're adding stuff to that all the time. And so they can also engage us on social media. We have a Facebook page. If you go to Fix California Education, on Instagram and on Twitter, it's Fix CA _EDU. Any of those places, we're adding stuff all the time. And it's a holiday season, so things kind of take a lull. But I think in the next week or so, we're going to ramp up pretty hard and fast. We have petitions. I've actually been personally delivering them. Other people have been doing that throughout the state. And so we're hopeful to have the petitions out amongst most parts of the state within the next week or two. And then because of the weirdness of state law, again, we live in Silicon Valley. I don't know why we can't do this electronically. Actually, I do know why. It makes it easier for people to get angry, right? But so we've got to take a one-page petition and we have to deliver it out all over the place. It's got 7 signature slots. And so if people want to sign up, they can come to the website and hit volunteer and request the petition. We'll try to get it to them as fast as possible.
Great. So Lance, what I'll do is for the podcast, I'll make sure in the description of this podcast, I'll put out your social media links, also the websites. What I'm going to do is before I head down to Los Angeles, I'm probably going to maybe try to meet up with you, get one of those pages, because I'm going to see Mike over for lunch, and I'll give one of these petitions pages over to Mike, and he can circulate it around there. I'll circulate, I'll pick one up for myself there for you, and for the video site, we'll make sure we put all the websites and the links also on the description, but also in the video itself. This has been a great discussion, Lance. Thank you so much. As you guys progress in this, and as you're starting to collect signatures moving in the next couple of months, we'd love to have you back, because Absolutely. I'm sure you can provide us with more information. And I know as people begin to hear about this more and more, they'll obviously want to know how to get involved. Maybe there's a couple of new stats or maybe things that you guys are working on that would be greatly beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to try to set up some events in different locations throughout the state that people can just show up and bring their friends. So
great.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah.
Best of luck. You're taking on a huge battle, and like you said, one that if we could get a better system going, then maybe down the road, 10, 12 years down the road, we wouldn't see some of the stuff that we're seeing right now in the cities.
Well, and one just finally closing comment, if we do it here in California, this will sweep the nation. It will sweep the nation. It will fundamentally change the way that American education is run from here on out.
Wouldn't it be nice if we did something in California that swept the nation that was for the good?
Yeah, because everything else is terrible.
Well, thank you so much, Lance. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you,
appreciate
Lance.
it, guys. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Well, Mike, that was Lance Christensen there, folks, with this interesting ballot measure that they're working on. Like I said, we'll make sure we put all the all the links in the descriptions there, and they've got an uphill battle. They've got 1.5 million signatures got collected. At the same time, I think it's a worth cause.
It's definitely worth. Again, it's a unique approach that I don't think has been tried before, which I think is really smart by them, the Policy Council and Fix California. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different outcome. This is a completely different approach to it, I think, and good on them for trying to do it that way. Because we certainly all know, whether you got kids in the schools or not, but especially if you do, things need to change. Things need to get better. Kids got to be better prepared for trying to find work in a global economy, and that's not happening right now. As Lance said, they're learning, why the person next to them is either better than them or less than them. And you know what? When kids go to school, what they should be learning is how to get along with each other. So then when they grow up to be adults, they know how to do that. We don't have that right now.
Right. And the I think the other thing too is, usually when you hear a new program starting or they're looking to expand something, it comes with the notion of, okay, great, what's it going to cost, right? In this particular issue, they're going to use already existing money there. They gave the parents the option as to how they want to utilize that money, which just means that they're not going to raise taxes, which I think it's a great thing.
Right.
So you don't see your bill going up, but at the same time, you as a parent will have greater options.
You'll probably see your bill going up, but it won't be because of this.
Yeah. Well, that'll be your gas bill right there. So.
So anyway, well, it's been a great show.
Yeah. Well, Mike, great talking to you, and I will see you in a few days as we try to get together over for luncheons.
Look forward to it. Be careful driving down.
Will do. Take care.
All right. Take care, everybody.